somebody like they're trying to stop somebody from getting shot. And it's cheating.
Sure.
In that sport, nope, not allowed.
Second time I've tried doing investing,
I'll tell you afterwards, it was a mess.
crazy.
I think Brian's the only one that actually had kids
All
that
right.
continued on.
Good evening, everyone, and
Girls that
welcome to
actually
the
continued past 1
April
year.
24th Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. Call the meeting to order, and we'll start tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Good evening, everyone. We will start with any review or additions to tonight's agenda. All right, seeing none. One item I did want to mention, I realized when I went back and was watching part of the last meeting, and we took some time and thanked Mr. Leary and Mr. Hayes. Welcome, Mr. Olson. I completely forgot to congratulate Mr. Burke and Mr. LaPlante on their re-election, so congratulations to both of you. My apologies for missing that last month. Next, we have member assignments. From our previous reorganization meeting in March, we had one position that we left unfilled, which was the communication archivist. Mr. Cutter had very eloquently nominated Mr. LaPlante while he wasn't here, and Mr. LaPlante graciously accepted.
Well, hey, how about that?
And,
I don't know about graciously.
he accepted. So I'll entertain a motion for Mr. LaPlante to be our communication archivist.
So made.
Motion by Ms. Douglas. Second by Mr. Burke. Discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. He's going to spend a few minutes with Mr. Brunel after tonight's meeting to get up to speed on stuff. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. Motion carries 9-0-0. All right, next we have public input. I'll open it up for public input. Seeing no one here tonight, I will close public input. We'll have a second public input session before we conclude tonight. Next, we have review and acceptance. Oh, I skipped correspondence. Sorry, correspondence. Thank you to Mr. Taylor for putting this together. Bear with me. There is a little bit of length to this because we did not read correspondence at our last meeting in March. So I'm going to go all the way back to January 16th to read our correspondence. So give me 3 minutes. January 16th, 2025, Chairman Sun forwarded the FY26 budget reduction proposal from Mr. O'Connell. Chairman Sun also shared budget hearing slides and shared attachments from NHMA and NHSBA per Mr. Barca's request. January 17th, Chair Sun shared updated bonding estimates with tax impact from Ms. Kleiner. On January 18th, Matthew Sullivan provided the meeting minutes for the budget hearing and the post-budget hearing meeting. On January 24th, Heather Snaman shared the budget report from January 24th, the special fund balances and budgeted revenues for December 2024. Chair Sun notified the committee of the need to sign the DRA documents at Town Hall. On January 25th, Chair Sun shared the proposed use of current police station from Ms. Kleiner. January 28th, Chair Sun shared the agendas for the town and school deliberative. February 1st, Chair Sun shared the school business administration report. February 8th, Chair Sun shared the slides for school deliberative. February 14th, Chair Sun shared the budget report from 2/14/25, special fund balances for January and the January budgeted revenues. Chair Sun, Mr. Cutter, and Ron Oblinas emailed about the potential changes if Mr. Oblinas was elected to the budget committee and his current role on the facilities improvement subcommittee. On February 21st, Chair Sun shared the February 19th school BA report. On March 17th, Chair Sun shared the budget committee agenda for March 27th. On March 23rd, Matthew Sullivan provided the meeting minutes from the January 16th, February 1st, and February 8th meetings. On March 24th, Heather Snaman sent the fourth quarter 2024 comparison report. March 26th, Chair Sun forwarded information from Ms. Kleiner about the default budget approach. March 27th, Matthew Sullivan provided the meeting minutes from the March 27th meeting. March 28th, Heather Snaman shared the special fund balances, budgeted revenues for February, and the most recent budget report. March 31st, Chair Sun shared the draft schedule for 2025-26 budget committee meetings and a link to bylaws for review. Also on March 31st, Chair Sun shared the budget committee agenda for April 24th, and Kim Kleiner shared the shared the April 2025 town newsletter. On April 11th, Heather Snowman shared the budget report for April 11th, budgeted revenues and special fund balances. And then on April 15th, Kim Kleiner forwarded a link to recap of the Board of Selectmen meeting. And that is 4 months worth of correspondence. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Next, we have review and acceptance of minutes. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from March 27th? So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion made.
Motion by Mr. Burke, second by Ms. Douglas. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries 8-0-1. All right, moving right along. Town business. I will turn it over to Mr. Brunel for updates from the town.
Thank you. Just a few updates, I guess. One of the things I wanted to make sure the budget committee was aware of was that as we're tracking our budget based on the default result, a couple interesting points. Our interest revenues are down, beyond what we expected, I guess, at this point. We're about $32,000 less in revenue since 2024, so we're kind of short, which is a bad thing. We're also following a bill called Senate Bill 297, which is the Senate is making a change to the reserve requirements for entities like Healthcare Trust, which is our health insurance company. And one of the parts of the bill was to actually require the town to hold a reserve in lieu of the entity itself too. Anyway, it's been going through the process now back into the House. It's being reviewed there. It's been admitted that they did remove the town requirement, but it also doesn't give us any clue what they're gonna do to the entities like Health Trust and what they have to do for reserves.
Wait,
And how they're gonna get it.
we'd have to have reserves in
In
addition to the.
yeah, that got
That
removed.
part got removed.
That got
Alright,
removed.
okay, that makes no sense.
Assuming it stays as it is right now, that got removed, which is a great thing. The problem is we've heard everything from increases everywhere from 1% all the way up to unreasonably 40%.
Ugh.
So now that the reserve requirement's removed from the town, that kind of makes it a little smaller, hopefully. What we don't know is what the amendment's gonna do and if they're gonna make any changes on the timeline, of how fast they have to build that reserve back up.
The insurance
The
company?
Insurance company, yeah.
Are they running
just
low
gonna-
on their reserves?
So if you listen, like, I've been to a couple of sessions with like Health Trust, which is our insurance company. One of the things they commented is that they're solvent at this point. They feel that they're healthy. The issue is that they, during the COVID era and coming out of COVID, they consumed a lot of their reserves to kind of cover those costs.
Okay.
They've been building it back up slowly, but it's not being built back up in the rate that the state wants. So the state is kind of gonna mandate how fast they're gonna build it up. We just don't know what the outcome is gonna be. And that could have a significant impact to our budget come the fall. In, coming off a default and having a cap, it's not gonna give us a lot of wiggle room. So those are the two insights.
I did find the language of the bill, House Bill Senate Bill 297.
Yep.
And it says, in its current draft form, workers' compensation, they maintain a contingency reserve with a minimum of 30% and a maximum of 40%.
Yep.
Health, a minimum of 12% and then a maximum of 16%. That's in its current form.
Yep.
Okay.
So we have to see how it comes out of the House. There was a hearing on Wednesday. It was attended by a ton of lobbyists.
Of course.
So, but the feedback that I got from it and from when I've talked to other folks, it seems like it has support to go through. It's just a question of how does it come out on the other end, and what the impact to the town is, and will the state slowly drip into that reserve versus forcing it as a large increase. And then we don't know how Health Trust will respond. Health Trust has indicated that if this goes into play, they're gonna dissolve.
Then what happens?
Well, then you have to go back to the other resource pools. And there's not, and NHIT, which is another one, that's insolvent, it's already closing down. The school one, that's the other one I can think of at this point. There's a few other ones in the state, but they're all being faced with the same conditions, right? I just don't know what their status and their reserves and that kind of thing. With regards to any, some sort of actions in the board, At our last meeting, we did take care of a lot of our warrant articles that were passed. We did do a bunch of transfers, so you'll see a lot of budget movement around the warrant articles. We are in the process of applying for a grant for a clean fleet to
What does that
replace.
mean? No, I know, but does that mean like solar? What does that mean, clean fleet?
No, so this is the same grant we've been using to replace a lot of the DPW trucks.
So just more fuel efficient than what we currently
Correct,
have?
actually.
But
yeah.
not tying us to.
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, just cleaner fuel, burning
Perfect.
better mileage.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, this one is, this is to replace the current fire rescue.
Okay.
And if you heard the discussion, you know, it requires us to come up with $126,000.
It's better than $500,000.
We're writing it with the idea that we can use the contingent on our impact fees. Because we will not have to make payment for almost 2 years, or 2027, I think it is.
Can you use impact fees to replace an existing truck?
It's actually an improved truck, so.
Oh, so you
yeah,
can make
yeah.
improved
You can
service.
make,
You
yeah.
can make an argument.
Yeah, this actually takes the rescue and moves into a sort of, I think they call it like a squirt. It's also a fire pumper too,
Right.
so it actually has a different use case.
No, I just wanna make sure that we're in line with complying with,
Yeah.
with impact fees.
Yeah, and we'll go through all that obviously at the time. And we also received our reimbursement for the clean fleet for the highway grant that we received, so that got paid. Received $239,000 for that, so. And that's about all that's happened.
Question, it's interesting that you're mentioning the fire rescue truck, right? If I think about the apparatus that was in line for replacement, that's not one of them that came to mind for me, in terms of the cycle of the next being up for replacement. Why are we thinking of that one?
It was in play, it was like
That-
second or
what-
third, I think it was.
Maybe it was third, what was the second one?
It was probably, I would assume it was probably engine 4, which is our mutual aid truck.
Okay.
But we put a ton of money into that,
Yeah,
right?
we did.
And felt we could buy some more time off of that one.
Okay.
So the issue is that the rescue is the one that actually goes on the road frequently.
All the
It's-
time,
It's
right?
all the time, and it's used for light duty stuff, and the current rescue is a 1989.
That's the one with the doors that roll up on the sides?
Yeah. We bought it from Londonderry.
Yep.
And put it in service, and it's done as well, but it's not efficient. It only carries 2 people, so you can't, you know, you have to
Yeah.
use, on a typical response for a fire, it's 4 or 3 at least, so it resolves that. And this will allow us to retire that truck, and potentially when the tanker goes away, the tanker goes away and doesn't get replaced. We'll run the tanker till it dies, but when it goes away and it's no longer in service, I believe the chief has indicated he's not gonna replace that.
Oh, good.
But don't hold me to that, we
No, I
can
know.
drill the chief when he comes in for his
We'll revisit
budget.
that at a later date, but
Yeah.
it'd be nice to be able to consolidate down to fewer vehicles to maintain.
Well, remember, the vehicles that they have are to get their ISO rating. So we have to be able to produce enough water to keep the insurance rates in town low, or where they are.
Let's say it low.
No, it's
My insurance kind
But I
of.
thought the hydrants then at that point gave us
Still have to
the,
deliver water, you have to deliver the water, so you have to have pumping capacity.
so there's 2 areas that I have to pay excessive amounts to, in order to be able to say that I have enough water. I need enough hydrants and I need a big
You
enough
need a water
tanker.
source, and then, you need a water source, whether it's hydrants or draw, right, out of a pond or something like that, and then the ability to actually deliver it. Right? Now, the hydrants become this conversation, the hydrants are not the fire department's hydrants.
Right, yeah, it's
They're the towns, they're the
right.
towns, and let's not forget, the reason why the taxpayers are paying the full freight now is the ratepayers brought a petition warrant article and changed it.
Sure.
And Pennachuck continues to raise the price, obviously, which is why we're looking at eminent domain now, so, more to come on that.
Yeah, but it's not like we weren't paying in the past. Like the ratepayers were paying screwed.
Yeah, I think it was $25 a month.
Yeah, well, based on my meter used to be $7 and is now 20. I can only imagine what my hydrant fee would be.
I know, I agree with you,
Yeah, my point was, John, is that, new developments that are going in, we need to have
more hydrants going in.
more hydrants going
Yeah,
in.
which means that cost
Because
is
then at
going
that point, I need that for insurance purposes, and now I also need to make sure that I get a big tanker for the same reason. It's just,
Right.
with a river that we can pump from.
Oh, that too.
But the problem with drawing, the issue about drawing out of a river, it's a lot more labor intensive, and it's not always efficient. Right, so.
John, would you mind speaking to kind of the communication shifts, like with the town coming out of meetings and stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a shift. I think we're just,
That's a summary.
we're trying to get more details out to the public in sort of smaller vignettes that can be consumed. I mean, all the meetings are obviously being posted. We cross-post them everywhere. You know, people watch them, but they're 2-3 hour meetings. You don't get a lot. So the idea is try to bubble up what we think is important to the residents, and also highlight activities that we're doing that could affect the residents. So the last few meetings, you probably saw after those meetings, a couple days later, and this week was like a week later. But we're trying to get out sort of a recap. There's two versions of it. There's an internal version of it that goes to all the commissions and boards and the town employees about all the massive things that happen, right? Everything that happened, kind of real detail. We're taking that and kind of vignetting it and kind of getting out to digestible bits for the public. Just again, it's our way to help residents understand what we're doing, what we're focused on, and so they're not surprised by something that comes down the road. Now, you know, I hope they're reading it. I've gotten good feedback.
I've gotten good feedback as well, and I think, you know, I'm sure it's hard because you don't know whether people are reading it or not, but I think I would rather have more information out there than less information.
Right.
And I like the kind of long version for departments and elected officials,
Right.
and that synthesized version for the town or for the community. I think that's a good communication tool.
What's nice about it too is like bullet points, so that if there's something that interests you, like,
Yeah.
you know, you can go to it in the meeting, because I take it it's in the same order as the meeting, so if you can't always watch every meeting, you'd say, okay, yeah, there's
Right.
that.
Oh, yeah, I can go there.
Yeah, and we do try to keep it in order of the meeting. It's, you know, unfortunately, it may not always be that way, but the meeting link is, when they post it, the meeting link does go with it. You can always click in and watch the meeting, but the idea is, you know, again, if we're working on a police station or something, like, we're not right at the moment, but talking about, we want to make sure people know what we're talking about. We don't want anything to pop up and go, well, I never heard about it before, so
Yeah, I like it. I think it's a good thing.
That's frustrating when that happens.
it is.
Any other questions for the town or Mr. Brunel this evening?
I do. And actually, it came from one of those bullet points in the, meeting. And that's the town took back the payments on the porta potty. I know it's something minor, but I don't understand, number one, how it got on the default budget, because we removed it and everyone agreed on it, and now you're gonna be paying for them. When
So-
the leagues had already said, we'll pay for them.
Yeah, so the default budget is a factor of what the last year's approved budget was.
Right, but if you knowing going into preparing it, my understanding, and we talked about this as far as the school, like, if you know you don't need a fourth grade teacher, you're not gonna put in a default budget. Right?
So the default budget doesn't have specifics in it, it has just numbers, right? It's a bottom line at the end.
Yep.
So the numbers were there. The selectmen could have chose to do something different, and it wasn't in the default budget.
I would say it shouldn't have
It
been.
wasn't in the default budget per se.
Okay.
The board took an action to use revolving funds out of recreation to pay, and then some money come out of their maintenance or weather line, but
So-
it's paid. But at the end of the day, the board believes it's a service we should be providing to the community, and it should be supported by the town. So, it's back in now.
Here, here.
Well,
So I
Larry,
guess
At the end of
moving
the day,
forward,
the
moving
parks-
forward then, if it's a bottom line budget,
Yep.
then when we go to cut,
Yeah.
do I need to be specific as far as which line? Because clearly we go ahead and cut a particular line, and then you guys just put it back in anyway.
The
So
board-
should I
the-
just take a look at it and just say, you know what, for the Recreation Commission, I want to go ahead and cut $10,000, for example?
You could do
I,
that.
I
but they'll
hear,
still find it.
I hear what you're saying, and I do think it helps provide guidance in our thinking. I go back to this. Like, we've said this on the school side for a long time too. Like, hey, let's just save a bunch of time and just do the bottom line cut and move on. But I think it helps provide guidance and direction. And look, I watched the last Board of Selectmen meeting, and I know there were several folks that came and spoke about the porta potties, and I kind of thought we'd maybe have some people here tonight. We may before we're done. But, you know, I want to be really clear that I voted to have the money taken out of the budget. My intent was not to have porta potties removed from the town of Litchfield. I want to be really clear about that, because I think that was said at a Board of Selectmen meeting. It was not the intent, was to get rid of porta potties in the town. The idea was, with a bottom line budget and a tax cap that we are legally obligated to get under, there's only so many places we can go from stuff versus people. And I feel very strongly about people and protecting our people. And I looked at it as, whether it's coming out of the bottom line budget, whether it's coming out of the revolving fund, or the associations pay for it, the porta potties weren't going to go anywhere. We were going to figure out how to pay for it, and we had to get under the tax cap.
But what I find disappointing is the leagues agreed to take it.
then they
They
recant.
agreed to cover, they calculated their dues and membership fees, assuming they're gonna do this.
So
And the
if-
town says, you know what, we appreciate you
So
taking, we're
that's
gonna do
not-
it anyway.
That's not what happened though. So the leagues started squawking, for lack of a better way to say it, they started squawking about paying it. But a lot of these leagues and associations donate money within labor and materials and different things to different portions of the rec commission, baseball,
For
softball.
the fields they use.
Correct, but if they don't do that, that means the rec commission now has to put the money in the budget to maintain those
Town has
fields.
to pay for 'em.
So at the end of the day,
That's
for an
not the only
$8,000
option.
investment, we are saving $30 to $40 to $60,000 a year in maintenance.
See, I disagree with that premise that it would have to proceed, but I think the disturbing part is, we had a public conversation, it was agreed upon, and then we tell the taxpayer, oops, sorry, so why should they believe us next time?
Well, I think it's
Well,
a
I don't
bottom
think,
line.
I don't think the taxpayers agreed with you.
I think it's a bottom line budget. I think they made the choice to fund it, whether it was from the budget itself or from the revolving fund. They have the ability to do that.
So that just tells me we need to cut more next time.
That is your prerogative, but I will just say this. So one of the things that we experience, what we heard from leagues, we're gonna lock the doors. People can't use them, only the leagues can use them. That's not what they're there for. There are more people that use those fields and
I would- I agree with you
They're
on
there, that we need sanitation there.
I agree.
So, matter of fact, this past week, one of the bathrooms were locked. Someone put a padlock on it. When we had the company go down and clean it, and they couldn't get into it, because there was a padlock on it.
I checked that one today, and there's no way of putting a padlock on it.
They told us it was a padlock, we can't commit.
I know, but
We
it's
went
all-
down there after the fact too, and it was there, so we assumed someone took it
Right,
off.
but there's only one latch.
Yeah, I don't know what
There
happened.
wasn't another latch here, because there's no hole, so I'm just saying.
I'm just saying,
Was-
someone talk about chaining it shut, the whole 9 yards. At the end of the day, there's a minimal requirement in our fields where we have kids that use it, we have parents, we got joggers, runners, we got bike people that go back. We have to provide those facilities. So.
But
it's
we
a small-
weren't taking it away.
No, you,
The
but you were
point was
forcing
is that
on-
we
but
were
you forcing-
responsible about it and asked the leagues if they would go ahead and do it. Now, if they turned around and came back and told you
Which leagues
afterwards,
did you get authority from that?
Soccer.
Soccer was the only one I remember hearing.
Soccer, we talked to soccer, talked to baseball. The only one we didn't talk to was softball.
Pickleball.
So interestingly enough, baseball was complaining that they're gonna lock them up. Right, so at the end of the day, it's a town service. We have to, if we don't want if you don't want the parks, remove the funding and close all the parks. But you're not gonna do that, you're taking small little hits at it, and I get it, I understand. But the town wants to have it there, and the town has to maintain it. This is the other problem too. The town needs to manage those toilets. Cause if something happens to the toilet, they're gonna call us, and if we don't have access to the company that's doing it, or the rate, we can't service it and we can't resolve the problem.
Well, I remember speaking about this when we went through the budget process. Like my intent, I'll speak for myself, I don't speak for other people, was A, not to get rid of them, and B, not to have 5 different contracts that were going through the
We wouldn't
association.
allow- right, we're
That
not
the
doing that.
contract was gonna stay with the town and the money would come through some vehicle, whether it be associations or whatever, to keep the contract whole and intact. Like that was the spirit of our discussion that we
So I think what action we took, basically used the revolving fund, which is fees that are paid by the associations and people that use the fields to put the toilets back. So we kinda achieved what you asked.
So it's
There
still-
was
yeah,
some
it's
money that
still
came
the
out of the
same thing,
budget, but most of it came out, I think half of it came out of the revolving fund.
what did the associations pay to the town?
It's not, no, I meant, it's whoever uses the fields and pay for the fields. Some of the programs that get done, we.
Okay, yeah, like the out-of-town stuff.
How much do we actually generate in fees on that?
Is anyone
Is
else
it
having
$8?
deja vu from like
Well,
3 or
no,
4
my
months
problem
ago?
Yeah.
is, well,
Pretty
we
sure
had a
this exact
conversation,
same
it just,
conversation.
well, apparently we need to have it more than once, because we had it and it got reneged. So, do those fees generate enough to cover the cost of it?
At the end of the day, when the voters vote the budget, after you're done with your job and the voters vote the budget, it is a selectman's budget to make decisions.
I agree.
The selectmen heard from a lot of folks, a lot of community members, a lot of outcry, those toilets need to go back. We put them back.
There was an opportunity at deliberative.
Well-
So my question is, if we're gonna use the
Yes.
revolving fund, is there enough money in the revolving fund to, generated annually
I-
to cover this expense?
Unknown to me at the moment.
I think
And
that's a good
no
question
one,
for
no
the
one's
budget.
agreeing that that's how we're gonna do it going forward at this point. That's how we did it this year. We gotta solve it for next year.
So John, was the biggest concern, were there a lot of people in the public who thought we're just gonna do away with porta potties in those fields?
Yes, I think that was a
Yes.
big misconception, was that all the porta potties were gonna be gone.
But when you hear people make comments like, we're gonna lock them because they're our toilets, not yours.
Right.
Well, I think.
That's a problem, right?
Well, I
So-
think then
and I
that's a
understand
public
why it's-
relations disaster. Then go ahead, let's have that conversation publicly.
Oh, I
You
get
wanna
it.
make that decision, let's have a conversation.
But
But
but it's still, Kerry, I get what you're saying, but at the end of the day, it's still absurd. These are town fields. We have to provide sanitary services there.
And I'm just saying, we
And
had a
I
conversation.
would argue that these are so, when you went to the associations, I know soccer gives money back, you take care of your fields, you spend a lot of money maintaining it. If you decide, well, if we're gonna pay this fee, then we might as well not do this, you know, at the end of the day, it's gonna cost the town more money. So why are we penalizing these associations on a little nickel and dime thing?
Then don't have the
I'd
conversation.
rather have them spend money on the field.
I have
That's
a
fine,
problem
then maybe
with-
they need to start paying for field maintenance. The point is, John, is that you guys gave us something that was over the tax cap.
I hear
You
you.
allowed a budget to come here over the tax cap, which was fiscally irresponsible, and we had to find ways to be able
The
to cut it.
board-
I think we had found a way that allowed the transfer of that burden to the different associations. Maybe next year I take a look at it and I say, you know what, the field maintenance, mowing, seeding, and things like that, boom, we're gonna cut that then, because maybe that won't trigger the community to go ahead and create an uproar,
Yeah.
and then maybe it'll come. Or if you guys give me a budget that is at or under the tax cap, then I don't have to go starting to find places to cut.
It'll be even harder given coming out of a
Yeah, I was
default.
gonna say, Scott, if you're not realizing it yet, having a default budget with the shortcomings we already have and the increases we're already predicting, we're gonna have a very difficult time delivering a budget that's at this level right now. Right, so
So then we shouldn't
the
be
board,
adding
the
to
board's
it.
the Board of Selectmen is to present a fiscally sound budget to keep the town services at the levels they're at. Not reduce, it's the levels they're at and be efficient.
See, I guess
what
that's
we
where I
deliver.
would argue. At some point, if the economics don't work, you unfortunately can't keep the services where they're at. If somebody's making $100,000 and then all of a sudden they have taken a job for 75,000, they gotta find areas to cut. And if there's expenses that now are causing you to be over the tax cap, then you have to take a look at where you can go ahead and tighten the belt in terms of different services.
Every time the voters vote an employee, a police officer, or another position, that adds cost to the town.
I think we understand that, yes.
I think the problem too is the economics change, so the reality is, sure, when times are good, let's absolutely do these X, Y, and Z additions. But then times change, the market tanks, people don't have the money, they can't, cannot wait to hear about the phone calls you guys receive in July and next November when people see what their tax bills are going to be. And then things have to change. Then maybe the
So-
things that they once wanted, they say, you know what?
What do you wanna change?
Maybe I don't need it. Oh,
Because
believe me,
the
there's a lot of
knobs-
things I could
Well,
cut.
The knobs are difficult, right? So you have, the biggest knob we have is people, and that's the one thing we're trying to protect, right? We don't have multiple people doing the same
In
job.
an $8 million budget and 20% is stuff, like, there's your number to work
Right.
with, right?
And so what do? Shut the recycling center down for 2 days a week? More than it's open? You could outcry for folks that go to on Wednesday, it's not open Wednesday anymore. People want those services open.
I think it'll be an interesting conversation come budget time, because yes, we want. Can we afford?
I don't disagree with you, Carrie. Brian, back to your question. I think you started this conversation. I want to close the loop and make sure your question was answered.
It was.
Anything else, maybe not related to porta potties tonight for Mr. Brunel? I was prepared to speak to it too, so thanks for bringing it up. All right, switching gears. School, Mr. Cutter.
The school has a porta party at GMS.
And CHS. Two at CHS.
It's handicapped, too, so it's even more cost.
You can actually separate them though.
It would be nice.
Bring
to
one over to
separate
baseball.
Different ends of the fields.
Yeah.
There's a real bathroom at baseball, though.
Anyway, just on
better
school
that way.
updates. A solar update. I know it's top of mind for everyone. Solar is not live. We are not on the grid. I did receive an update today from the superintendent and business administrator. We are continuing to wait for the new meter to be installed. I am told, look,
By the time your kids graduate?
I don't, your guess is as good as mine, right? I'm told any day, who knows, so.
I know you've explored this, or well, I don't know, but as much as you're able to share, like we've gone through legal options on this, right?
We have.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm assuming that we paid for this in advance.
We have not.
Okay, so we haven't actually paid for the solar. That's
We're in a
not-
power purchase agreement for the solar.
Well, it's part of the bond payments we're paying, right?
So it's
Is
part,
it costing us money while we don't have it?
so
Paying for-
Currently, no.
currently, no, we're actually.
Saving money.
We're actually saving money as opposed to paying.
But only on electric
bill on the
though.
school.
Aren't we paying for heating oil that we weren't supposed to be paying for? No?
There's no heating oil at all in that building.
Okay.
In
My
fact, there's no tank.
Well, my understanding was that we were still using it, so, okay.
No. Nope. And the building is fully electric, and we are protected underneath the power purchase agreement underneath that building. We are using more electricity on LMS than what we are paying for.
I mean, you've said this before, and I'll just say it again since it's brought up. At this point where we are in this belabored project, we're ahead. We are coming out ahead right now because we are saving money, and the
Oh,
Organize-
ahead on the electricity, not on
ahead
the
on
project.
the electric. That's what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
The recurring costs associated with it right now from a utility standpoint.
All right, by that one.
We are not ahead from a public relations perspective by any means.
No,
Well, and
agreed.
the overspend.
But what I was going to say is the company's losing money. Not the company itself is losing money by not having this installed. It is hurting them more than it's hurting us right now. Set PR aside, which I agree with you on. We're benefiting financially from this right now. They are hurting financially from this right now.
That is absolutely.
What part of it costs us money? What's the non-electrical cost here?
The non-electrical costs are the association with the power purchase agreement. We pay $97,000 a year. That's our cost for 6 years. And then after 6 years, up until 6 years to 10, it goes up, increases from there, and then 10 to 15, it goes up, and then it gradually increases from
What
there.
are we
to
getting
20.
for that?
We get to own the array of 800 panels on top of the
So
roof.
we are paying for the array that we can't use yet.
We are paying for the array under a fixed purchase arrangement right now for the first 6 years. That fixed purchase arrangement goes to variable after year 6.
Why are we paying for something that we can't use yet, that they haven't installed and set up?
That's part of the power purchase agreement.
Because we're using electricity,
We are using electricity.
just not
on the
electricity we
building.
generate.
Otherwise, we're not paying for electricity at all.
Who is this agreement with?
It's with Dynamic Edge,
They're the ones that
Dynamic Grid.
installed the solar.
Dynamic Grid. They are the company that we have contracted with, and they've subcontracted for the company that installed the solar.
And we agreed to pay them for a plan that would only benefit us if the power is generating and they can just not finish it and we still have to pay them for the time until they do?
We have to pay for electricity and our usage regardless of whether we have solar or not.
Right.
Well,
So-
I understand that we're paying for the power, but it seems like we're paying for something more than just the electricity we're using.
We're not. So our annual electricity bill at LMS, regardless of the solar array, on any given year was approximately $140,000 to $150,000 on any
Okay,
on
so
any given
we're
year.
paying for power that we would have had to purchase
And
anyway.
part of it is we for some reason put renovations through a lease. So we actually have a, 20-year lease?
20-year.
To pay for renovations that were part of this project.
An oversimplification, I think, of what you're trying to get at, Eric, is over the last 2 years, we have financially saved approximately $100,000 in utility costs at LMS pertaining to heating and electricity. Because we're not paying that.
We're not paying
direct-
it. We're not paying it to EverSource.
Correct. Right. We're paying the $96,000 to the PPA.
So overall, is there some other cost there that, it's unclear to me if this is the whole thing.
This is it. This is
So
the
we
cost.
are saving money overall.
We are saving money overall up until, again, this year 6, once we then have the discussion of the fixed payment switching to variable, which is why this past year in March, you saw an article for the purchase of the solar array is starting to put away money for that purchase, because we're gonna have a $550,000 or so payment at that time to, as an opportunity to purchase the solar array. Otherwise, if we don't, we're switching to a variable payment every year at that point, which increases our costs.
What is it variable based on?
percentage, I'd have to look it up, but it goes up significantly.
But we also don't know if it makes sense to buy it out, because we don't know what the ongoing maintenance costs are going to be, like
We have
replacing
that
things.
now.
Oh, we do, good.
We do have that.
We didn't at the time.
We do.
We also,
Sharing that along with maybe the copy of the PPA with the whole.
Again? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I don't know that Eric has seen it.
Yeah.
I have not seen any of the numbers for this at all.
Yeah, I have the package.
Has anyone tested it to know that it actually works or what the actual output is?
So the system, like as mentioned, that the system has been tested, yes, but it's not live. We need a new meter.
So it actually did generate and we've
Can I
recorded.
finish?
Sure.
We need a new meter installed in the building by Eversource, okay? And once that new meter is installed, the Eversource and the agency commission has then 10 days to flip the switch. And that is essentially a guaranteed period to turn on and activate the system and enable the array. I don't know if I'm using the correct words. The last part of the project is the installation of a BESS. A BESS is a battery energy storage system. Essentially think of it as a big shipping container, which is going to be your batteries inside this shipping container with fire suppression inside of it that's going to sit behind LMS. And that is gonna be your energy supply. That is intended to be scheduled or intended to be installed over the summer. I do not have an update on where that is in the process. I'm continuing to ask for where that is and if we're on track on that.
But we can go live without that.
We can go live 100% without the battery, the storage system.
But only if we get the meter,
Correct.
because with no battery, there's no way to regulate the power. without
Right,
the
but I need the meter, and the meter's the next step. That meter is scheduled to be installed any day, and then from that point, they have 10 days to activate the system.
You know, no kids are in school next week, right?
Look, this is what, I mean, as I shared with the budget committee, this was scheduled to happen over February vacation because I and the superintendent felt very strongly that this should happen with the building unoccupied, and they should flip the switch when the building is unoccupied.
At this rate, you may as well just wait till summer break, realistically. So, one of the questions though is, at what point will we know whether or not production yield is in line with what we expected for the design?
So I'd have to get back with you on that.
Because it'd be a bummer to be like, oh, and then, oh.
I'd like to believe that during the summer months is probably when we're gonna see maximum output on the solar array, so that would be a good time to test this thing,
No.
I would think. I mean,
So there wasn't enough test data to show on a good day, how much it's actually working. There's no peak output.
I don't know.
Realistically, I'm like this on
Did you
this
have
whole
a second
project.
question on that?
No, I've kind of written off this project as a complete waste. so.
Someone should also be on Eversource's case about how long they take to hook up the meter and how long they get to turn it on. I had to fight with them tooth and nail with mine to get them to actually hook it up to the grid.
No, yeah, that's,
It was months behind, and they had a year's warning that when we were gonna come online. They knew exactly when it was gonna happen, a year in advance, and they drug their feet as long as they possibly could.
Yep.
You guys have engaged with Eversource, I assume, right?
Yes, absolutely.
you're at their mercy. It's like the elevator people.
And people should also check Eversource's numbers, because they will fudge them.
Additional updates, Mr. Cutter?
So that's the solar update, again, expressing my complete and utter dissatisfaction with this entire project, along with, I'm sure, everyone around this table and the taxpayers. In terms of default budget, we are also under a default budget for our next year. Our next year begins the beginning of July. We are still kind of working through those numbers. We do not have yet an end-of-year forecast quite yet, and in speaking with.
That was gonna be one of my
I
questions.
know,
All
and
right.
speaking with the business administrator just today, she is continuing to work on that. We understand that's important, it's also important to the board, but we are still in April.
You all had, I believe, at one of your last meetings, the superintendent had a list
Yes,
of identified things that
I shared
could-
that with the budget committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I shared that with the budget committee. At this point, we're not anticipating any personnel impacts, it's the stuff. Reduction of smart boards and things like that, that are gonna be coming out of our budget to get us to that about $300,000 difference. $280,000 difference, and that's what's going to make that up. In addition to that, we have, a number of personnel changes throughout the district, which is typical this time of year, people coming and going. You may have heard of Principal Hess, right, who's accepted a job at another district. We are interviewing for other principals right now, but there's a number of other positions like that in the district that are coming and going. We are making a number of strategic hires right now, intentionally, that are really the best candidates for the positions that we're hiring for, and are actually a lower rate than the current position that is leaving, right, which is a savings to the taxpayer, and that's a good thing, right? And so that's something to keep in mind as well as we go into the next year.
Any additional questions for Mr. Cutter this evening?
I'd say the only other update that's top of mind for me, certainly as we approach the May month, is starting to get a picture of encumbrances, which is all about the end of year spending. I don't have that picture yet, but certainly approaching a default budget year, top of mind things for me, and I have not talked to the board about this yet, so I'm truly speaking just off the top of my head, but top of mind things for me are structural issues at Campbell and some of the bigger deficiency items that we need to address. Going into a default budget, these are items that we're going to need to figure out. So I know there was an RFP that was put out over the past month for soffit replacement at GMS. I do not have an update on where that stands, but I know that's a bigger ticket item that we need to also solve for. And that's out of this year's budget.
Is that being coordinated with the other work that may need to be done at GMS? Because it'd be a bummer to fix this off and then be like, oh shoot, we need to take it down to do some other
No,
work.
this is an immediate repair.
Like I said, hopefully we don't have to deconstruct it to do the other work.
Any other questions for Mr. Cutter this evening?
Just as you get closer to the budget season, would be interesting to see, we'd had quite a bit of discussion around, replacement positions. Superintendent was stating that there wasn't going to be a whole lot of savings there. I put my faith in that. You're saying that
Yeah.
some are coming in considerably less. I would like to have some good, firm numbers that
Sure.
we can have a conversation about to make a fair attrition cut.
No.
Well, then you're gonna get one number I pick, Andrew. You're not gonna want my number.
Cut my porta potty.
Both at CHS.
Anything else for the schools this evening? All right, moving to member input, new business. We do have a couple of additional items beyond our normal member input, new business. The first is our annual bylaws discussion and review. If you all remember, every year in our April meeting, we review bylaws, entertain any changes or additions, and then at our May meeting, we will vote to approve our bylaws and send those, post them on the portal by Mr. LaPlante, and send those to the town so they have those on record. I did send one item. I guess I'll go ahead and start with the one item that I had for the bylaws. This was the only proposed change that I had. And I shared, everyone should have a copy of the current bylaws. They're on the portal, budget.litchfieldnh.gov. If you go to LBC documents on the left-hand side, you'll be able to see those. If you scroll down to page 1, 2, 3.
Sorry, where are you looking at?
On the portal, on the budget committee portal, if you go to budget.litchfieldnh.gov, that takes you to our portal. And then on the left-hand side, there's a menu item that says LBC Documents. If you click on that, it will take you to our bylaws, which is posted there at the top. If you scroll down to page 4, starting at the bottom of page 4 is section 5, responsibilities and duties of the budget committee. What I would like to propose is that then if you scroll actually to page 5, letter D currently states, committee members may serve on citizens or other subcommittees when appointed by majority vote of the committee. And what I would like to propose to change that to is the following. An elected member of the budget committee may be appointed by the committee to additional subcommittees in town, including but not limited to Capital Improvement Planning Committee and School Facilities Improvement Committee. As an appointed member by the budget committee, these members shall not have voting rights on the subcommittees.
I like it.
I don't. I think they should have voting rights.
Yeah, no.
I got two people sitting here that have double voting rights,
Correct. And they're on those boards.
Talking about me.
so then triple.
But the reality is, they can go back and discuss it with their committees. A person from here doesn't have time necessarily, but we meet generally, outside of the budget season, once a month. How do you get the consensus of the board?
You don't need the consensus of the board. The thing, it doesn't have a financial impact.
I'm,
And I'll use the CIP that I'm on, all right? All it is just voting on what the needs that are for the town.
what
If
benefit do
the
you?
school board and the select board stand to gain more by having a vote on those boards,
I agree with you. I think they should be non-voting, but that's set by RSA.
but they are.
But it's set by RSA. We can, I've tried to overrule
Those aren't
that.
in our purview for
So
our
I
bylaws.
can't
I
change it.
understand.
They could choose to not be voting, and I, quite frankly, they should, but we can't control that.
I agree. We can't control them.
Long-standing tradition of the budget committee is that our members have been non-voting. Yes, I know there was a period of time where I missed it when it changed from non-voting to voting, but as soon as it was brought to my attention, I brought it back. Because I don't believe that we should have voting rights. You have an opportunity to vote here,
Then why be there?
because you can still help, give insight.
You can inform and influence. And
Hey, that's a
provide
great
insight
idea,
and
but I
input.
can tell you when it comes to the budget committee, I'm gonna have these 5 questions. You sure you want, are we prepared to answer that? I think that's a great idea, or I don't know that that'll pass. I understand we wanna spend, however many millions, but I'm not sure
So,
that'll
so
pass.
Carrie,
because you
with the
can still
CIP,
have influence.
Carrie, at the CIP, we're not telling them what to spend money on or anything. All we're doing is, it's the town
Prioritization.
work frame of what the needs are for the town. That's all it is.
But you
From
should-
there, the select board can decide whether or not they want to get a warrant article, the school board can decide, and that's something totally different.
Mm-hmm.
All it is, the work frame of running the town.
Then why do you even need a voting rights? If that's all it is, why do you need to be able to vote?
Partially, I think, because the select board does, and so does the school
So
board.
because so 2 wrongs make a right?
No.
That's
No,
not
why,
what-
why can't the budget committee have a say in terms of where they think things should rank based on,
You can, you don't have to, you can be there and have an engaged.
Have a voice, but not a
Voice,
vote.
but you don't have to
Ultimately,
vote on it.
whatever the town's going to bring forward, using Brian's example, they're going to potentially, whatever they prioritize, they're going to bring forward as a warrant article. And Brian's going to have an opportunity here, as a member of the budget committee, to vote that up or down, whether he believes that's something that he would support or not.
Well, that's not correct, right? It's just because the CIP recommended warrant item.
No, but I'm not saying it's an absolute that it would happen. I'm saying, I know, it doesn't guarantee. The same way it doesn't guarantee that the FIC, if Carrie were a voting member on the FIC and says, I'm gonna vote and this is the plan that we're doing, that absolutely means that's what the school board would bring forward for a warrant article. There's no guarantee of that.
To me, there's no real benefit to us voting and plenty of benefit to not voting. You can still engage in the conversation, you can still help guide and shape the outcome without because you don't know the will or the consensus of this board.
But I'm not,
Like
It's a
it's not
downside to voting.
It's not a vote for, representing the budget committee.
If you then talk to them about being a community rep, because the reality is, when you're on there as a representative of the budget committee, you're representing the budget committee. Your vote is seen by the community as the vote of the budget committee. And quite frankly, I disagree with you on most stuff. I don't want my vote tied to you. So I don't want.
So, let me say this.
And I just like you don't want my vote tied to you. So I can be there, have a conversation, give my input, and at the end of the day, it's the decision of the community, but you can still guide and shape.
Let me say this real quick. So my intent in bringing this forward was to provide clarity in our bylaws, one way or the other, because it's currently not laid out. And to your point, it's been a long-standing agreement, and I think whatever
Codifying it.
whatever we decide here, it should be written in the bylaws, whether they are voting members or not. I stand by what I wrote. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a motion and then we can continue discussion if we need to. I'm going to make a motion to revise Section 5, letter D, to what I previously read, into our bylaws and replacing what is currently there.
So are we voting this week? Because I thought by our bylaws, we can't vote this week.
yeah, we have to vote next week,
Next meeting.
next month. But it has to be
I will
before
vote
May
in favor of
31st.
it, but I think formally, we present at one meeting and we vote.
I hate my own rules.
It's an amendment, it's not a whole document,
Yeah.
right? So it's just a
So,
change.
so let me think through that.
So are we gonna pick and choose when we fought, really?
No.
why do you think it's done and
Here
done?
was my thinking on this, and you may be correct, that tonight was about essentially gaining consensus of what are we going to do so that it can be written into the document and then we vote on the bylaws next week.
Right.
So, yeah.
I like I like the amendment, I just don't, like, we can vote for
We can
consideration.
do a straw poll on this.
or
Yeah,
something, like,
yeah.
But formally, we can't formally adopt it until.
Can you read that one more time, please?
And so what it currently states, I'll start there. Currently states, Section 5, letter G. Committee members may serve on citizens or other subcommittees when appointed by a majority vote of the committee. Doesn't speak anything about voting or not voting.
Right.
The point of this was to provide clarity around voting. What I propose is an elected member of the budget committee may be appointed by the committee to two additional subcommittees in town, including but not limited to Capital Improvement Planning Committee and School Facilities Improvement Committee. As an appointed member by the budget committee, though these members shall not have voting rights on the subcommittees.
And by the way, Dee says an amendment to these bylaws can be moved at one committee meeting, but not voted on until the next. So even an amendment requires a second meeting.
That's why government takes so long.
Thank you. But it's like,
But I like it.
if the general consensus of this group, because I'm hearing kind of a mixed bag right now, is to have voting rights, then I will rewrite this to say that they shall have voting rights, because I want it to be clear one way or the other.
I don't think there's anything gained by voting.
I like the way you wrote it.
Any other thoughts?
What problem are we solving here? Just clarity again?
There's no clarity one way or another. We have just openly said, hey, go be school facilities, go be CIP, and by the way, you can't vote. We've just said it, and it's not written down one way or another. The goal is, let's capture this so that 5 years from now, when this conversation comes up, and most of us aren't sitting here, that it's very clear. That's what we're
In
trying
5
to
years, they wanna change it, they can change it.
correct.
Why do we need clarity? Why can't we just continue the agreement and just leave it as is?
Because I would prefer that it clearly states the will of the budget committee, is that they vote or they don't vote. Because right now it isn't clear. Right now it's essentially,
It's a handshake, right?
yeah, this is what we do because this is the way we've always done it type of thing. And I'm not a fan of those.
Is there a situation where there'd be a new committee that we'd want to vote?
Well,
Could
there
be,
was
and
the
they could
Energy
amend the
Commission.
bylaws. Oh, that.
We had somebody on the Energy Commission or something, didn't we?
I was, but I hardly went.
But we have the ability to appoint somebody to the Energy Commission.
Yeah, so, there's an energy commission or committees to commission for this kind
And
of
at that point-
takeover, would we want to be voting members of those committees?
Yeah, I mean, the way this is currently
handcuffing
written,
us?
including but not limited to CIP and
I think it's
SFIC.
good to have an advisory role without actually voting, to me personally.
Any other discussion on this? So, based on our bylaws, I will bring this as a amendment to the bylaws next week, and then we can vote it up or down. We'll, and then we can vote on what I propose.
Next week, I just want to be clear.
I'm
Next
sorry,
month.
next month, thank you. We will vote on it as I read it. It can then be amended to change it from not voting rights to voting rights, and we can have that discussion and go through the process then. And then amend the bylaws and vote on the bylaws themselves. Any other proposed changes to the bylaws that we want to discuss tonight?
How do we
Okay.
go back to getting out at 9:30?
Add it to the
That's
bylaws.
not in the bylaws. You're
How's your time?
more than
Get
welcome
it by
to
May 30th, you're done.
have that discussion.
Was there a thought about codifying a little bit more of the archivist? I wasn't sure if we discussed.
So that is actually, let me
We could go back to the rule that we had before at 9:30.
There actually is a whole section, section
extend.
F.
So we did that already?
We did that, I think, 2 years ago, because originally it was written as
do, don't
social
have
media, and
Yes.
then we shifted it 2 years ago.
Cool with that, like,
Do
I
we
think
extend it the next
then I'm
meeting,
good.
we start that much earlier?
Because it specifically talks about the portal.
Oh, zip it over there.
All right, next on the agenda, draft calendar for 25-26 budget year. I emailed that out to everyone. You should have a copy of that. Couple of just highlights. I essentially, first thing first, none of this has been shared with the town or the school directly. They may have seen it, shared informally. This is a draft up for discussion. But it is, for the most part, a rinse and repeat from the last couple of years. Monthly meetings with through August with no meeting in July. Starting at the end of September, our town budget process with presentations, and then town voting.
How many Tuesdays are on this?
How many on the?
How many non-Thursdays?
I think just the joint school session.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think just that one is the only one. So the town process is essentially 5 weeks, meeting every week on a Thursday, 2 sessions if needed, based on presentations and voting. So you can see those there. Kind of following the same format of the estimated delivery of the draft school budget there on October 29th. I believe that was the same date that we used last year. The thing that I did add, based on the discussion that we had back in March, I think Ms. Douglas brought this up, and this is certainly up for discussion as well, was if you notice about halfway down where it says under the school budget meeting schedule, it's bold and italicized, estimated delivery of proposed warrant articles to BC. I have that on there at December 1st. So that is new to, that is really the only thing that's new to this calendar from last year, because that was not clearly called out. I just arbitrarily chose a date that felt like made good sense and would give us at least a couple of weeks to have that information, as much as we could get, to look it over prior to the town and school warrant article presentations on December 18th. So that's the only addition that I made from this past year's schedule. Comments, questions, thoughts?
I think it'd be nice if, so in the past, they did it when they presented their budget, so if there's a, hey, we're thinking of, I wouldn't, earlier is better, obviously, as we, because it'd be nice to know as we review the town budget, because reality is warrant articles affect the tax cap. As we go through the review, if we know, hey, there's $400,000 worth of requests coming, as you review the town, you can think about that. How would you like to prioritize? How does that affect? Rather than go through the budget and then be like, oh shoot, there's $400,000 worth of warrant articles. How do I prioritize?
So the town typically publishes a live document with all the warrants in it, in draft format.
When?
It's the start of the budget for the most part.
No, that's what cause I remember Troy used to do that.
So
We did it last year too, so I'm not sure you should.
I'm not. I agree with you, Carrie. I wanted to just put something out there for discussion.
I like it. But again, like I said, I like it from the strategic. This way you can review it kind of holistically at once instead of reviewing it and then going back.
When do you have the warrant, when's the warrant articles for you guys?
The presentation,
Yeah.
December 18th, and then voting January 8th, and then budget hearing January 15th.
The draft that I see from the town side says December 11th, but that's fine.
They used to be in September. That's the part that just is frustrating.
For warrant article?
Troy at the beginning of the meeting
I will
would
do my-
present as he presented his budget. He said, "Here are the," because when I was looking through the meeting minutes to prove a point and something else, I looked at it. I'm like, "Oh, that's right. We used to have the proposed, not fleshed out."
Yeah, I will do my best to make sure you're aware of working budget warrant articles.
I would appreciate that.
So here, I like what you're saying. My thinking was December 1st, we've got like, hey, here's what we're going to bring you on the
Right.
18th. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking, September 25th, if John and Kim and team have a framework
Right.
of their thought thinking. This is not final. This is
Exactly.
what we're working on with departments and et cetera. And these are our estimated cost
Mm-hmm.
of potential warrant articles. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that does help us.
I mean, typically the warrant article drafts show up on our portal in September.
I would
That's a
love
public
that.
document you can look at if it's there, but I'll make sure you guys have
Okay,
access to it.
yeah, I can tell you right now, I don't like Google, so I minimize my time in the portal. So a nice little email would be awesome for me.
Any other comments on the schedule tonight? We do want to vote on this tonight.
Yes, vote.
Because I want us to vote on it and let Mr. Cutter and Mr. Brunel take this back to their groups.
But if we're asking that of the town, I would like to also ask that of the school.
I think the school would not be in September. It would probably be in.
That's fine.
Early
As
November.
they start to present their budgets and as we start to go through it, an idea of order of magnitude, here are our top 3 to 5 that we're looking at. So as we look through it, we can, because while you're not currently subject to a tax cap, people's pockets are gonna be a little light this year, so it's gonna have to be looked at holistically.
I think it's a good thing for Mr. Cutter to take back, that I would agree with that if when we're doing those joint sessions, if there is a slide or two that says this is our thinking on proposed warrant articles that we plan to send to you by December 1st, yes, I think there's value to that.
Is the joint session's the first time you guys see it too, though, isn't it?
Yes,
So how you're not gonna know what you want for warrants, though?
that's my issue.
Yeah, they, oh,
Well, you're discussing it
if
in your
you know that
meetings.
there's hey, we know that there's a contract coming up, we hope to have
Yeah,
it.
that stuff, obviously.
I,
yeah.
you know, that'd be good to know. Hey, we know we need these couple of things. Order of magnitude,
Trust,
$100 to $200,000.
Trust
Trust funds. There's things that you do
I'm
know.
gonna put a new school on the ballot this year.
Go for it. Let's see how that works out for you.
that's not a good idea. Any other comments, thoughts, questions on the calendar?
Want a warrant article?
Sure, go for it. I would love to have that conversation.
Do I have a motion to approve this calendar?
So made.
Motion by Mr. Barca,
Second.
second by Mr. Burke. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Motion carries 9-0-0. Okay,
Can we just go back to bylaws for a second?
yes, sir.
I'd like to throw a proposal out there regarding public input. I believe the school in
Is there
their
a current
bylaws.
section you're addressing? Or that
No, it would
exists?
have to be a new section, because it does not talk
Probably,
about.
it would fall under conduct of meetings. Probably, yeah, because there's a section that talks about quorum and voting procedure and, yeah, okay. I was just trying to get in my head where this would live.
Okay, so it would read, public input will be limited to no longer than 5 minutes unless the chair grants additional time. The chair will consider the relevance of the input when granting additional time.
I don't like that. But, no.
What's your-
Public input?
What's your
People-
thinking behind that?
Because last year we had far too many times that people were coming in, bringing up things for the school board, bringing up, and at least then at that point, it puts you or I, acting as chair, in a better situation that there is a professional point to pause instead of attempting to interrupt somebody as they're rambling on in order to go ahead and decide whether they should be continuing or they should be bringing that to the appropriate boards.
Where they come for the third time and ramble on about the same thing, over and over.
I will vote against that one. I don't like it. I think it's obnoxious with the other boards. I don't think we should be the ones that have it here.
You're gonna find that in boards throughout the country.
Yeah, but you know what? You can very easily say, listen, Mr. Smith, I appreciate your point of view, but unfortunately, we really don't have the time. So thank you. We can talk later.
But we don't do that. We
That's-
go on for an
that's
hour
an
and then,
us. That's an us thing.
but
That's a choice
No, it's not
we-
even, it's not even a you thing, that's the chair's thing. The chair is responsible for running this meeting effectively, and that's the person that can put a stop to a conversation.
I would agree with that.
If
And
the
my
chair-
point
if the
is,
chair
it just
decides to
gives
let that-
some sort of milestone
Yeah, but
that
you-
everybody understands in order to go ahead and decide whether that person should continue with their input, or if it is not relevant, direct them that they should be going to the appropriate board to have that input.
But you don't need.
There's
to
too many
wait
times that we get stuff about the school.
Can you reread what you said again,
Sure.
please?
Public input will be limited to no longer than 5 minutes unless the chair grants additional time. The chair will consider the relevance of the input when granting additional time.
The relevance of the input. when
That's the
granted.
chair's responsibility still. I mean, at the
Yeah, I
end
don't
of the
think
day,
you need to
it's,
let the ramble for 4 minutes instead of 5 minutes. Say, you know, I've listened to you for 5 minutes on an unrelated topic, so please go elsewhere. I mean, you can politely and respectfully say, listen, I appreciate your point of view. I'd love to help you. I can't do it here. School board meeting is next week. And move on.
But I
So,
also gotta remind you, you're all elected officials.
Mhm.
And you work for the public, and the
Yes.
public wants to
I
share
know.
some information with you. If they wanna come here and talk about school, I think you kinda have to listen to them a little bit. I mean, I get it, you gotta kinda control a little bit.
yes, and.
but it really doesn't have anything to do with the budget committee.
Well, I think in the case of the person you're talking about, it will have an effect the budget committee at some point in time, but yes, I mean, I understand the specifics the ones you're referencing.
We have multiple offenders.
There's been multiple.
Yeah, and
As a matter of fact,
and
one
on
of
the
them,
board,
one
so
of
we
them,
experienced the same
John,
thing.
one of them came here and said, yeah, I wanna have a conversation, but it really only pertains to Andrew. So I wanna talk to him about a few things that happened with the school board. And then he started talking to him, having a conversation.
But then that's a choice of the person running the meeting to cut it. I don't like the idea of putting it, I feel like it censors.
He was
and
welcome at any of my meetings.
but again, the reality is,
Welcome at any of the meetings.
I know.
Why-
you shouldn't need, if you can manage the meeting appropriately, you shouldn't need that in there. Like I said, I find it obnoxious at the other building, and to his point, when I was chair, I'd sit there and listen to it, because they took the time and effort to show up during public input, which very few people do. And you know what? You cannot agree with it, but you can sit there politely and listen. That's what they elected you for. You cannot like the topic, you can still sit there politely and listen.
I think that the Board of Selectmen has I know when I was serving as chair before, they had I think it was I think it was either 15 or 5, I can't remember now. But at the end of the day, it always went longer, right? Because it's an issue about courtesy, right? Again,
Yes.
there are constituents, they wanna share something with us.
I think
It's unfortunate sometimes it's off topic, but.
I mean, so having been a part of other public entities like school boards, like I was always used to there being a time limit. Where I really see the need for a time limit, like I don't think this would happen here, I may be wrong, but like I've seen it at school board meetings where you have a room full of people here. They're here to talk about one topic, and you've got 10 to 20 people that want to talk.
Say the
Like,
same
I think
thing.
in that instance, you have to time box it. Like, you have to
That's when we
whoever's
usually
sitting here has to read the room and go,
Does anybody say
there's
something
20
new?
people here to talk. They can't all talk for 10 minutes. Like, because of the amount of people that are here tonight, we're actually going to limit public input to 3 to 5 minutes, whatever that is. I think that's a case by case, that if you've got a room full of people, you address that then.
We usually get like 2 or 3 people. It costs you an extra 5 to 10 minutes to have them feel heard. So I appreciate you bringing it forward, and it's the will of the committee, but I will not be.
Carrie,
voting for
and
it.
generally it happened through budget season, and it wasn't 5 or 10 minutes.
Again,
It wasn't 5 or 10 minutes.
we'll have a different opinion on this. If somebody takes the time and effort to show up, I'm gonna listen to them.
And I think
You can disagree all you want, I will listen to them.
Let me just add something real quick, and then Mr. Cutter, go ahead. I do believe in not putting time limits in unless there is a room full of people here to talk. And I think the other thing that I believe in, and please call me out on this if I don't do a good job of this, is that public comment should not be a discussion and a debate. Like, I believe public input should be people coming, expressing their opinions, their thoughts, and not let me turn and ask you guys questions and we're going to dialogue and debate back and forth. Because I don't believe that's
I
what.
disagree with that one. One of the things that annoys me the most about the school board and when you go there, stone-faced, no answers. Like, if we have the answer, let's have that conversation. A lot of times you can resolve it, they go along their merry way, and they don't come back immediately for the next meeting feeling unheard and ignored.
I think you can if that is a very simple answer. I think what I don't want it to become is a 10-minute
No, and that's-
back and
yeah.
forth.
I understand that, but one of the things I value about this committee, one of the things I like about, well, I love all the things about this committee, that's why I keep staying here. But one of the things that sets us apart from the other committees is we do allow that back and forth in conversation. People do feel heard, people do get answers. It is so annoying to go to a board with a valid concern and be like, talking to a freaking wall.
Because you
We-
could
that should
possibly,
not be us.
Carrie, the problem with that is you possibly are giving an answer, and you're representing the budget committee, and maybe we don't feel the same way as you do by the answers you're giving. That's why.
The
a
great
member
thing
should
about
not-
everybody being here is you can chime in.
Okay. Mr. Cutter, you had a comment, I think. And I interrupted you.
Yeah, what was my comment? Look, I think it's an important topic, right? Especially with a potential warrant article that there is going to be a lot of passion about from the community this year. The board is, pressing forward as best and reasonably as we can with something to do with the school. That is, we're following the guidance of the FIC. And so you can anticipate, at least at this point, something in terms of a warrant article to do with the school. And so I do think that in terms of community input, there will likely be community members that are coming up to the budget committee this year where this is a relevant conversation.
And I think, Mr. Taylor, certainly feel free next month to, bring this as a proposed amendment to the bylaws and we can have any additional discussion that we need to. But, I do think it's the job of the chair. And if I'm not doing it, tell me, call me out on it. If Scott's not doing it, call him, tell him out on it. I think it's the job of the chair. Unless you've got a room full of people that are here if 20 people show up to talk about a school warrant article and we know they're all here to talk, the chair should, at that moment, in the interest of time, limit discussion to 3 to 5 minutes, whatever it is,
Or
right?
be willing to set up a special meeting where everybody can have their gab fest.
I mean,
Everybody can express their opinion. If you want out in a special meeting, fine.
No, I think you're right, because the last time I think about that happened with the school, I think was a few years ago when a group showed up here around sensitive topics that they thought were being taught in the schools, and the school listened to most of those, and then followed up by having a session at the gym for people to come and talk and experts to speak to that. So I think that's a good format to use when you've got stuff like that. Yes.
I think putting a rule in place with giving an out to the chair to approve more time is no different than the way we don't have a rule now. To what you're saying is giving exceptions or limiting time depending on people in the room. So I wouldn't be something for that to limit time, because we're just giving an out for the chair to be able to override that anyway. So I
Yeah.
put the rule in there.
I mean, ultimately, like, I don't want to limit time unless someone is talking for 15 minutes and it's turning into a debate and a discussion.
Or circular
And it's
argument.
being repeated, it's repeating itself. Like, yes, I think in that moment,
Yes.
the chair should step in. If someone wants to sit and talk for 15 minutes about something they're passionate about,
We can.
I mean, yeah, they have the privilege to do that.
Offline, we'll develop a signal that you can give to the chair to say, cut the conversation. Okay? That way we know.
Just give Eric a big hook, the new guy. He can.
There you go.
Any,
Done.
any other comments, thoughts on staying circled back to bylaws? All right. Updates from school facilities.
Both of us, when did we meet? We didn't meet this past week because we got bumped from the space. We are looking, there was an opportunity they were looking to flesh out an email, encouragement to the school board to move forward with investigating various options. So hopefully there'll be a look at that. Again, with the whole performance-based expectations, we need this many rooms, we have this many, how do we get from A to B? We need this much space, what's a good way of doing it? There's some conversation, a look around that. So right now, it's narrowed down, there's looking for additional information to be able to move forward with a recommendation, a final recommendation, areas that were not previously explored to the level that some would like. So hopefully, that RFP is going out at some point.
So the recommendation hasn't gone to the school board yet.
Well, I keep getting I get drafts of.
The recommendation has gone to the school board, that
Yeah,
happened.
There was a draft, I don't know if it went forward formally, but yes.
Yeah, so the recommendation has gone forward at the last meeting. I wasn't there, but it's right here. The board is preparing to review RFP language at our next meeting, and I am hopeful that that will be a very quick process, and that doesn't take more than one meeting for us to get through, so we can issue an RFP timely.
Middle-ish of May.
I am hopeful that, yes, by middle-ish May, this thing is issued. Otherwise, I do not want it to wait a whole nother meeting cycle, because then we're getting this thing out in June.
Yep.
Is the recommendation a new build, renovation, or
The-
RFP for both?
The new build was pretty much.
Following whatever the FIC came up with.
The FIC has set aside the idea of a brand new build. Every time it's been moved forward, it has been rejected. The numbers were really high in light of, fiscal constraints, looking at other options. Does that mean, renovating and building an addition at GMS? Does that mean renovating GMS and redistributing students throughout the district based on availability of space to reduce the size of the GMS addition? I don't know. That's one of the big conversations is.
Oh, but there's a draft of a recommendation.
No, it does not
It
include a new
doesn't
build.
identify, it's not specific to the one, it's like, it came down to essentially, there should be a renovation of some sort at GMS, what is the extent of that? That's the question right now, how much of a renovation, does it include an addition? How big of an addition? Can we salvage some spaces? Are they hopeless? So like some of those conversation of, if we knock down certain parts of the building, how big does the addition have to be? But wait, we don't need to knock them down, so maybe we can make a smaller addition. Can we move enough kids out to consolidate into the center for a core without an addition? So there's a lot of that, those moving parts, somebody to look at and see. We know we need 25 classrooms, whatever it is, just don't hold me to that one, I'm assuming 5, whatever. If we need 25 classrooms, we have 22, do we need to build 3? Can we move junior, do we become a junior, senior high school, move some kids up, free up enough space, rearrange?
What to do with the portables?
That's what we need to, yeah, what to do
So
with the
based on
portables.
all these variables you have, how are you gonna put together an RFP based on the
The
fact that there is
RFP
no real recommendation
No.
from a group that's been getting together for almost 2 years?
No,
Have to see
The
how the
RFP.
Well, at least they finished their survey.
The RFP is more to have somebody come in and say, these rooms are salvageable, these are not. You can repurpose this space, you can't do this. If you repurpose this space, you need another 3 classrooms. If you knock it down, you need 10. Those are how much of the building can be reused, how much of the district space can be reallocated. So the
And the RFP goes out in May.
I hope
It closes
it
by,
shouldn't
a
take
month.
that long to.
and then somebody comes in and does their recommendations, and then you have to go back to an architect and try to come up with a plan that
Time
you
is
can
not
put
on
on
our
a
side.
warrant article?
Time
Well,
is
the
not on our
reality
side.
is, I think we also just,
And the bonding process.
Right.
but what did we also?
Sounds like Police Station Part 2.
Yeah, are you expecting RFPs to have like actual proposals in them saying you should get rid of this?
There's gonna be, the expectation is somebody will help guide through those answers. Can we salvage part of the building, can we not?
As
What
part
is
of the
it-
RFP process, they
That
make
is
those
the,
recommendations?
that's the recommendation for a consultant to give that information. Because that'll
You
determine
put an
the,
RFP out for a consultant that they're gonna pay to come in and
well,
do the work.
they would do it, my understanding is they're hoping for like an hourly, almost like a pre-construction setup. Like, we give you, it'll take you X many of hours to review the building, our billing rate is this, we'll consult with you to provide you with, you think you need this, but you really need this, kind of a thing. But somebody who has some, experience with rehabbing, with readdressing existing schools to better fit the needs of the district. Because right now, we've had new school, new school, new school, new school. Well, that hasn't passed.
I guess back to
Well,
Scott's
how
point.
extensive
It took
of
2 years to
renovation
figure
do
out
we
you need to hire a
need?
consultant to figure out.
1 year. Hold on.
To then cause a very shortened timeline to try to get everything that
and
Andrew
no.
just talked
Yeah.
about.
Watch one of those meetings?
No,
Hold
the
on.
reality is, where do we stand on state aid? Like,
Just to clarify something, the FIC's only been together for 1 year, not 2.
Okay, it was,
Just 1
it
year.
was last March.
So, yeah.
Not this past March. It was
Because the
last
last March was when the school failed, and then they came together in April. So they've
because my understanding is that Concord is first in line and would take it all anyway. So is there really that much of a timeline crunch? If we're like not gonna get money anyway right now?
There's no.
Well, but there is, if there's gonna be a warrant article in March 2026, then yes, there is a time crunch.
Even if we don't get any state aid?
There's
Because,
no state aid for renovations anyway.
well, that's not necessarily true based
Yeah,
on
it
what they're
is.
saying. All right, well then
I
you can
think
discuss
it's
with their
gonna
consultant
go
who is saying that it's changing the project but still eligible.
Allow the board to work through the process,
Yep.
right? What I can say is the bottleneck in this will not be the board. We will meet as, we will put on
Yep.
off-cycle meetings. This is critically important to the board, it's critically important to the district, critically important to the staff, and we are committed to working through this.
I think the only thing is like the timeline sucks because people are gonna be like, oh, my bill just went up $1,200 and now you want me to get a new school or a major construction building. So that part stinks.
agree.
So perhaps this year's not the best year just as people get whacked with tax bills.
Anything else for school facilities?
Second worst school in the state. We're going forward.
You go for it. Hopefully it's a
Capital
good proposal.
capital improvement planning.
Yep. So
Teachers
we went
deserve
and
better,
basically,
our students deserve better. Sorry.
There's a lot that
Hold
the
on.
kids deserve better on.
Capital improvement.
basically it was just an organization meeting as far as making certain we're set on our dates for the remaining meetings, and also that, they'll be looking for the department heads, give them hard dates as far as finalization of what their project needs are. So if, say come September 15th, they haven't given anything, it's not gonna go on a CIP plan, we won't consider it. The other thing that, Ms. Kleiner stated at the beginning, which is weird because now we're talking about buying a fire truck, is that as far as she's concerned, if it's not on the CIP plan, then consideration to purchase will or should not be considered. There's nothing on the fire CIP plan.
So that
For a
we found
vehicle.
that flaw, because it was in the 2021, it got dropped, and it shouldn't have been dropped. It was a 6-year plan, and it got dropped off the plan. It should have stayed on there for 6 years.
If anything
Well,
else,
right now it's
jack
not on
that
the
one
plan.
up so we can increase
remember,
the impact
the
fees.
first priority of that CIP is to set the impact fees.
Yep.
The impact fees were set, that truck was part of that 6-year setting,
Okay.
and somehow it got dropped
It's just-
off. and it
it's
shouldn't
not
have
on
been.
it.
Correct. So we've been collecting impact fees based on that capital need,
Yep.
so that's why it's there.
We need to go back on so we can increase that impact fee, because obviously it's, the cost has escalated.
But going forward, that's her belief that, and more or less addressing the
Generally agree
CIP plan, that it won't go on the plan.
I like that.
So with the communication tower coming off the budget next year, what's,
a lot of,
what's,
like,
what's the top
expenses
item in the CIP to replace that expense?
Well, as of last year, it was the police department and school, still 1A,
Cruisers,
those, yeah. But the top priority was the department and the school.
Okay, I meant in terms of like
Yeah, but the school doesn't
fi-
impact.
financial feasibility. What's gonna replace the,
That's gonna be at the-
what is the
that's up
lease,
to the
like
select-
80,000 on,
it was 150,000.
150?
Yeah, I would assume,
Might pay for the porta potties.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I didn't think about asking this today when I was getting my rundown for here, but, I mean, as far as priorities go, I mean, obviously, the police station is still a priority. Will we wanna bring something forward? No, if you heard the last meeting, the only thing we talked about was potentially bringing forward, to ask the residents to go hire a consulting company to do the evaluation and give us a plan.
It is gonna be on the CIP though, right, so we can add it into our impact fees.
It's still in the CIP, it's still there, it's not coming off. It is, no matter, the end result is, no matter what has transpired so far, it's still a need.
No, I hear you, I just wanna make sure that we charge as much as humanly possible for impact fees.
Sure. But, as far as other priorities from the town perspective, I mean, obviously, our cruiser fleet is definitely a challenge right now.
I heard there were none at Edwards though, that's good.
I saw one.
One's in the back, I think one's in the back.
Oh, he moved it in the back?
No, but, you know, so, I'm assuming that's a priority right there. I think there's a few other small things. The problem is, the town side doesn't have a lot of 50,000 plus projects,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, I mean, in 2027, there are IT investments that have to happen, because we're in our 6-year cycle at that point. But, again, we're talking about $30,000 or $40,000.
I think you should start making the case and educating people on unassigned fund balance. So that when we put a cruiser up against an unassigned fund balance, people are like, oh no! They're like, yes!
Hence the reason the communications we've been doing, and hence the reason we'll be trying to do that.
No, I think it's a good call out. I think communication is important. Like, I had multiple conversations with people about how did the school athletic trainer thing fail, because there was I felt like, apparently I was wrong, that there was good communication about the fact that was actually going to save money starting after year one, and yet that somehow failed, and that was going to save people dollars. So I think communication is important, and we've got to figure out. I mean, I think having someone updating the portal is a good start, because I didn't do a good job of that last year when Kate left. Yeah, communication is important. Period. Anything else for CIP?
Nope, that's it.
All right, next, reopen public input. Seeing no one here, I will close public input. Our next committee meeting is Thursday, May 22nd, 7 p.m. Be here. We will go through bylaws and any other town and school business that evening. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
Motion by Ms. Douglas, second. Mr. LaPlante, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carries 9-0-0, and we are adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone. Appreciate the
Eight further meetings for years.
spirit of your